Hi everyone, welcome along to this, what I think is part 21 of making this small hit and miss engine. I don't know how far I'm going to get on with it because I can foresee a few snags that I'm going to run into, I think. I sat here one night a couple of days ago, I must have been staring at it for an hour trying to work out what and how. But I won't cackle on for too long. I'm going to get onto the milling machine and do some drilling, right fine 2mm drilling for this little yoke, and you'll see what I'm going to do. I'll show you and explain. Okay guys, we'll get on with it. Right, what am I up to? You've seen this fork being made, and I think you might have seen me doing these fingers. But I've done quite a bit of alterations to them to make them thinner. It's still quite strong. But right, I've got to drill and pin these so that they swivel, and I've clamped that the best I can in there. I'm just going to do a little spot drill on there with a little miniature centre drill, and go through with a 2mm drill bit. Now I was going to pin these, but I can't pin. I can pin them later, but not now, because if I pin them, I can't take them back out. Whereas if I use a little Allen screw and nut, I can hold double Loctite on the nut. I can get them back off again, because to strip this mechanism off the little bobbin I made will be extremely difficult to do. So I've got this clamped in here, and I've actually put a little G clamp on to hold within the gap of that little fork one of the fingers, and I'm going to drill all the way through with a 2mm drill. So first job I've got to do is get this thing lined up. There's no way really of doing it other than eyeballing it. It's not going to be drilled on centre, it's going to be off centre. Yeah, thought that drill got a bit wobbly. Went through it real steady because I've only got it clamped against a block of aluminium. I'm coming to a point where I think I'm going to be stuck soon. Might need your help, guys. That's what I intended it to be. pull this nut on. I'll come back when I've got this set up. Right, I've lined it up ready to do the next hole. Just hang on, I'll just slow this heater down a bit. A bit quieter. I've spotted it, just going to drill it. As I said, I've had to come off set with these. Ooh, that is wobbly. Yeah, this is too thick. I need to cut it down some, and I'll explain everything in a minute. So I'll move this camera over onto the bench and have a bit of a talk. This episode, 21, I'm afraid it's going to be a short one. I'll say a little bit of input might help. I'll show you what I've come up with and tell me what you'll think. So these fingers are just cut from some pieces of raw stock, and they're not cut to any particular length yet. I just made them longer than what I thought they'd need to be. I made that yoke out of a piece of aluminium, you've seen me do that, and created these fingers. I've bolted them in loosely, but that's going to be up to a shoulder, which is there, so that's where it's going to be. So this is how the mechanism's going to work. So that's unlatched, so the engine can run as normal. I might need to put a kick in these to straighten them out, because they don't want to be like that. They want to be straight when it's shut, so they might want kicking, a bit of a bend in them. But this is basically what we've got. So if I do that, that is now latched so that the exhaust can't close. If you can see that, which I think there, yeah, so if I let the cam go, that is now latched. Let's bring it back up. And that is unlatched, so that can now operate. Okay, you see all that? Everything so far so good. Lots of little trimming and bits to do. As I say, these legs might need a bit of a bend just inside where they are there in that housing, and kick them so they're straight when that is unlatched. What's my problem then? Well, there's something to point with. The pencil will do. So I need to trim this down a bit, because the problem is you know that I've made this from a chainsaw crankshaft, and the crankshaft is too short. The main shaft are too short. Now that is an M8 by 1mm left hand thread nut, which is good, because when this flywheel's flying round and that thing kicks, it'll try and tighten itself all the time. So the only time it'll try and undo is when you're starting it, but once it's going, it's going to kick against itself. So it's good that that's a left hand thread, and on the other end is a right hand thread. So I think this is too short. I'm going to take some off this, let's say, I don't know, 3mm maybe. That'll give me a little bit more support. But when you think about it, it's got to support that, and I'm going to do it because of this bar being so big. I'm going to make out of this brass a butt that'll go in there, a slug that'll go in there, and in that slug, when it's the right diameter, I've got to cut some keyways in here, which we'll do with a milling cutter same size as what the thickness of that is, and we'll do that to both sides of it so that that'll slide over that. Now our whole idea is that they've got to come through to the other side of this flywheel. Now when I put the flywheel up to it, it's too short as the crankshaft. So what do? The only thing I can come up with, there's two ideas. One is to make this shaft that goes through the flywheel and then recess it there to take the nut. The other way, and this is the way that at the moment I'm heading for, I've ordered an M8x1 left-hand threaded tap and die set in HSS steel, high-speed steel, because if any of you watch Matty's workshop, Matty put a bit of a call out some time ago and said which is the best taps to buy, because over here in Australia we struggle, and I and quite a few others said you can't beat HSS for taps, which is something I learnt from somebody else who does a lot of engineering, and he told me that many years ago. Just don't buy carbon things and all the rest of them, just get HSS, you can't go wrong with them. Matty didn't get any HSS ones. He got some, I don't know whether they're made out of carbon steel or something, I don't know what they're made out of, but he snapped one in a casting, and he had to break it out. So I've ordered, why am I saying that? Because I've ordered HSS, all my taps and dies are, but I've got M8, but I haven't got left-hand thread, and I haven't got M8x1, I think it's M8x1.25. So I've ordered a tap and die set, and my idea is I've plenty of this steel stock, that's 10mm there, reduced down from 12 further up, must be where main bearing went, with 12, and then it dropped to 10. So because I've put all this sprocket affair on and this shuttle and everything else, I've taken all the metal away. So I'm thinking of making an extension shaft in the lathe as accurately as I can, that'll screw onto there and butt up to that and extend this 10mm shaft out further to a predetermined whatever that'll be, undetermined at the moment, so it'll stick out of this crankshaft at this flywheel. And when it sticks out of the flywheel, obviously on the end of the brass bar that I'm going to make for it, I can make the weights that'll grip around that, so that'll do everything all in one. This would be smaller than this, obviously. I think that's 39 is that hole. So this would have to be 39 point or whatever to make it a really tight fit, so it's pressed in there. I don't want it coming loose. So once it's done, it's done. So obviously I've got to be sure what I'm doing here. And this would be bored 10mm down the centre until it's stuck out past the new thread. So the piece of bar I'm going to make, I'll have a thread cut into it, and then it'll have a thread on the outer, a male thread. So it'll be a male and female piece of bar, as I say, of a undetermined amount. I don't know what it'll be. Might be 20mm, it might be 30, I don't know. It'll serve another purpose. It'll get that flywheel away from this alloy base, because that's another thing I'm worried about, like machining some of this away, because when you spin that up with your fingers, if you get your fingers caught under there, especially if it fires, it'll take end of your finger off. Whereas if it's spaced off, that won't happen, or hopefully not. That's where we're up to. So when I said I'm stuck because I ain't got the tap and die. Has anybody got a better idea? There's plenty of engineering guys that watch my channel and they're following this build. Other than extending that shaft, I have noticed all these kits that they do, you make your own crankshaft, but they always make it nice and long, which is obviously the reason why, because you've all this tackle to go on it, whereas originally this thing wouldn't have had any of this on it. Yeah, where do we go from here as such? Extend the shaft. I think it's got a bit on the way. or recess the end of the, make the bar and recess the end of it. It may well be that I've got to open this all out a bit more yet as well, because as you saw, even if I put a kick in them, these have to swing out under the sprung weight of the little flywheels that are going to fly around, and then when it wants to slow down and go back into mesh so that the exhaust valve works again, has to collapse back down against a drum which I'll create in that brass. So there's, yeah, a little bit of intricate work to do, but that's latched, that's unlatched. Let's keep that pushed against there. So that's unlatched, and that's latched. Don't know, maybe I haven't put enough ratio on these legs. Maybe it all needs making again, but I'm at a point now, since I've just drilled them holes that you've seen me drill in here and put these little bolts in, I'm stalled. What I was meaning when I said I'm not going to pin these yet was simply that I can't get that off. There's no way of getting that off there, because I can't get it off the shaft to drop it down off this. And the only other way would be to take all this apart so that I pull the whole lot off, which would work, I guess. But it'll make it easier for when I'm assembling this, when we do eventually get somewhere with it. This is only a bit that I'm going to be a bit stuck with. There's ignition to sort out, which I was looking at. I've got what I've shown you on one of the other versions, one of the other episodes of the magneto that came off this. But I have a funny feeling it won't fly around fast enough to create a decent spark. I don't know. And it might take some sorting out, whereas Andrew Whale, Learning and Turning, on his channel, he's just built that V-twin oglet, I think, no, Jerry Howell. And he uses them little electronic ignition modules. I don't know how dear they are, but I was leaning towards maybe getting one of them. It's only a small spark plug, so you don't need a huge spark on them, otherwise probably sparks would fly everywhere. So that's as far as I've got, lads. I'm on lasses as well. I'm gonna edit this and pop it on YouTube as it to part 21, because as I say, till this tap and die come anyway, I'm at a loss. But I'd like to hear some ideas. What do you guys think? Okay. Well, that was short and sweet, wasn't it? Yeah, not everything always goes to plan, and you know, this is all an idea out of my head, and so far I've managed to sort of overcome a snag as I've seen it happen, but I'm not too sure about this one. Any help you guys can give me? Any thoughts other than the ones I've spoke of? Can you think of anything better to make this thing work? I still think I've got to extend that crankshaft. It is just literally too short for all the stuff that's on it, and no matter how much I trim everything down, it's still going to be too short. But yeah, because I mean, there's always a risk if I make the shaft myself on the lathe. I know it's central because she's spinning in a lathe, but it only has to run out a couple of thou and that thing's going to wobble all over the place, isn't it, that flywheel, and it's going to look alright pig's ear. I want it to run at least something like, don't I, when it's running, and it is quite heavy. Again, I don't know whether it's too heavy yet. I may have to shave some more metal out of here. I may even have to shave one side out of this boss in the middle as well for what I'm going to create. It wouldn't be out of the way to actually remove that. I'd have to chuck it up in the four-jaw so I could achieve that, and maybe, yeah, it'd still be wide enough to get a good purchase. We'll see. Okay, sorry. Just look forward to part 22.